We have a code of conduct. Really the main premise here is that we want to create an environment of learning that no one feels threatened or the hostile environment. And so if you don't feel like you can abide by that, then we ask you to leave. So we take it very seriously. We've never had an issue, but always just want to bring that up and make sure we all understand that this is an environment of learning, and we don't want to create any sort of bad situations. By the way, if you feel like you've had a code of conduct violation, please reach out to either myself, Jessica, who else, or Amy over here to let us know, and so we can address it. So, call for presenters. As I was saying before, we're always looking for speakers. If you're interested in speaking, who's never spoken at a meetup even? Excellent. You guys are all great candidates. So I'll tell you this, that we will work with you as much as possible to make the experience easy for you. If you've ever considered giving a talk, I would say find something that you're passionate about, something that you know well or know reasonably well, and that you're passionate about, though, and that you may even want to learn more about. So if you want to get really good at something, present on it, because you'll, if you're smart about it, in my mind, you will make sure that when you get up here, that you know at least enough that if people ask a couple of questions, that you'd be able to maybe field those, right? And so it's really a great learning opportunity for yourself. And you have to learn how would you explain this to somebody else, which then forces you to learn it even that much better, right? And so strongly recommend it. We'll help you with slides. We'll help you with a talk review. Make sure that we set you up for success. You can come up here and even just do a 5-minute lightning talk or 10-minute lightning talk. Or like Tim here's going all in. He's doing a 45-minute talk first time. He's going for it. So awesome. Whatever you want to do, whatever you feel comfortable with, but we're here to support you and here to make you successful, and we'd love to have you come speak. So if you're even vaguely interested, find me after or email us at info@rmangular.org. Find us on Slack. Reach out and just talk about an idea. Maybe you just want to bounce some ideas off about what you might be interested in talking about, and let's talk about that and see if we can't make that happen for you. All right, so who's heard of Angular Denver? A few? All right. Who's got tickets for Angular Denver? All right, great. So Angular Denver, this is our second year of doing Angular Denver. Last year we had 12 speakers come in from all over the country. It was a great event. We sold it out. It was right around, I think we capped out at 200 people, 200 tickets that we sold. And then plus with support staff and all the speakers and whatnot, I think we had about 230 people. So this year, we mixed it up a little bit. Last year was a 1-day multi-track, and this year it is a 2-day multi-track. So instead of 12 speakers that were on average speaking for about 40 minutes each, we have 45 speakers on average speaking 25 minutes each. Okay, there's a few 10-minute lightning talks sprinkled in there. So we have 4 times as many speakers coming, and these are people that are speaking all over the world, speaking at national conferences everywhere. And so this is a great opportunity for you to meet these people, hear what they're talking about. If you want to learn about what's going on with Angular, what are some new techniques that you could learn and be applying at work, like this is what you come to. I recently wrote an article on this about how not going to conferences is costing you. And I remember I was talking with somebody who recently went to NGConf, and they had heard a speaker talk. And they didn't realize async pipes existed, and that they didn't have to subscribe to their observable stream, that they could just use an async pipe. It would automatically subscribe and unsubscribe it for them, and they could pass that to a child component. Mind blown. This person, it's what they've been exposed to. And that's on the easy end of the spectrum. When you start to see some of the more advanced talks that some of these speakers come out with, like it will open up your mind to a whole new possibility about how you might code and how you might approach problems. It's also a small enough conference where you actually have a chance to hang out with the speakers. You have a chance to sit down and talk with them at lunch. So we encourage all the speakers to make themselves available so they can be there to answer questions, talk to you. So this is an interaction level that you can't get at a large conference. And even some of the smaller ones. We just set it up in a way that we really encourage those types of interactions, because that's what brings people back. And that's what we all really want, I think, is an opportunity to ask and pick the brain on some experts and go like, hey, how would you do this? I'm struggling with this problem. So tickets right now, I believe, are right around $550. Is that right? So we run this as a nonprofit. So any profits at the end of this get donated to a group. We usually pick about 5 different groups and then randomly select one of them. These are groups that are all based on kids and technology. So we'll make a donation to a local group on that. But basically, we're trying to keep this bare bones as possible so that we can get as many people to be able to come see these speakers as possible and price it affordably. Also with Angular Denver, there's an opportunity to take some workshops from some pretty amazing people. So who struggles with RxJS? Anybody? If you're not raising your hand, you should probably raise both hands, right? Because I've been doing Angular for 5 years now, and I still go like, okay, which operator again am I supposed to use and why? What's the trying to remember? So we've got like Michael Lackey and Jan Nicholas coming from the RxJS team. They're teaching a 2-day workshop. That workshop would cost you $1,000. At any other venue, it's $600 here in Denver. So it's $300 a day. Who's heard of Dan Wallin and John Papa? Okay, so John's not coming, but Dan is, and he's coming and teaching their course, which is the Angular architecture. So it's an advanced Angular architecture class, 2 days long. Highly recommend it. It was the #1 workshop at NGConf this year. Over 150 participants, where the average attendees, I think, was around 80. So they were like double. Let's see here. Who knows Mike Ryan and Brandon Roberts, NGRX? Anybody? Okay. Who wants to know NGRX better? All right, there's some, right? So you'd actually learn from 2 of the maintainers of the NGRX library. So Rob Wormwald, also he is the keynote this year at Angular Denver. He wrote NGRX, taking the Redux pattern and applying it to RxJS observables, and he's the original author of that. But since then, it's been Mike Ryan and Brandon Roberts, plus a whole slew of other people now that are maintaining that code, and they've been adding to it. So NGRX 8.0 just came out with some pretty massive features, all developed by these guys. So if you want to learn more about NGRX, great. If you want to learn more about testing, we got Joe Eames coming. And then if you have people like at your companies that are wanting to learn Angular and they need that fundamentals course, we've got a 2-day fundamentals course as well. So lots of workshops, lots of opportunity for you. Sorry this is going so long. I just want to make sure you guys know about this and know what is available. You can go out to angulardenver.com. You can read speaker bios. Did the schedule get released today?
No,
we're working on the schedule.
But
okay.
Also, we are live, so you just announced the keynote speaker.
Oh, congratulations. We just...
You guys are the first to know, and whoever's watching online.
Yeah, so you guys are the first to know. We actually just got it confirmed today that Rob Wormwald is coming back to Denver. He just spoke at Angular Up and did the keynote there. And that's in Tel Aviv in Israel. I was out there with him. That was absolutely fantastic. So anyway, get your tickets today. We still have tickets. We do expect this event to sell out. So it'll sell out at 300 tickets. So get yours today. Come. It'll be an amazing event. I know you'll enjoy it. A lot of learning, 2 days of the conference plus 2 additional days of workshops. All right. One additional thing that we added on, we added NG Girls. So this is actually a free workshop for women to be able to come learn Angular. And so this event is held all over the world at conferences for free to help encourage women to get involved in technology. And so if you have a significant other or a sibling or a coworker that would like to learn Angular and be a part of this, this is the opportunity. This is a free opportunity to learn Angular and get them started. And so we're very proud to be able to offer this here at Angular Denver this year. Please help us, support us in letting people know about this and inviting people to come attend it for free.
It is applications only, like you have to apply, or the women have to apply. But there's a link on the Angular Denver website that goes to the NG Girls Denver website with the application. Those are tiny.
Yeah, those are much smaller than they look like they were going to be on the here. I was like, I can't read them here, but maybe they'll show up better over there. So with Angular Denver, we are looking for volunteers. So we have some volunteer opportunities. I believe this would be an opportunity to either get a free or discounted ticket to Angular Denver, just depending on how much level of effort you put in. So we are looking for volunteers. If you're interested, reach out to probably Jessica or Amy, and we'll talk to you about what that looks like and what kind of help we need. All right, so this is the networking part, and this is where we ask, is anybody looking for work? Is anybody an Angular developer looking for work? All right, great. Chris?
Yeah.
All right, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't say that I'm an Angular developer. I've only made a couple of applications with it, but yeah, I'm a Ruby on Rails developer.
Okay.
Getting more into front end, realizing I should have focused on that originally, given my artistic background. But yeah,
Excellent.
used Angular a couple of times. I really love it. The layout, the simplicity, it's elegant.
Great. How long have you been a developer for now?
A year.
A year? Okay. And you started out on Ruby, and now you're
Yep.
switching towards Angular. Okay, great. Excellent. And then
Ben.
Ben,
My name's
okay.
Ben Lee. I'm not in any part of the tech industry. I'm working in interior design, so looking to get into it. Been working with Angular probably about a year now. I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, just I have a few of my own projects, and other than that, I don't have a whole lot of experience. But
Okay, great. All right. Anybody else looking for work? Okay. Anybody looking for developers? Anybody here at a company that's looking for developers? All right,
So, yeah,
Chris?
We're hiring, I think we're hiring front end and back end developers, Tuft and Needle. So if you don't know what Tuft and Needle is, do some research, buy yourself a mattress. Our mattress is the best. That's the way it goes. Oh yeah, check the website, the careers page, see if you find anything you like and apply. It's remote, so.
And it's Angular front end, and what's the back end?
So there's no Angular, but I mean, if you're with this Ruby on Rails back end, just a handful of other things in the front end, so go for it.
Great. Anybody else? Companies looking for work or developers? All right, great. Definitely come see Chris or talk to other people here. If you also, I tell you another great resource if you're looking for work is get out on the Angular Colorado Slack channel and stay active on that. There's job postings on there. There's opportunities for even small little projects that you might be able to jump in on and help. And so, yeah, what we want to do here is we want to help support the community and helping developers find work as well as help employers find developers. So, all right. So really quick, with Rocky Mountain Angular, the main organizer and supporter is Breebug. So as I said earlier, my name's Jesse Sanders. I'm the CEO and founder of Breebug. And we've been doing the sponsorship now for almost 5 years. Been quite a while. So if your company is interested in sponsoring an event or being a regular sponsor, and that looks like, you know, drinks and food and sometimes it might be a space for us to hold meetings. I think we're looking for another space downtown. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So reach out to us at info@RockyMountainAngular or rmangular.org. Would love to hear from you. We're always looking for people to just find ways to get you involved. All right, so a little bit about Breebug really quick. We do staff augmentation, we do targeted outsourcing, we do leadership augmentation and delivery enablement. This one to me is like the really interesting and fun one. This is where we work with team leads and we help them level up the entire organization. So instead of just help coming in and helping code side by side with developers, we work with the team leads to help them raise the tides of all boats within the organization so that they can develop at a faster pace, higher quality code, less refactoring. We also do team training, and we just recently started offering the Angular Fundamentals Bootcamp, and so our first class is going to start this September. So you can find more info about all this at breebug.com. All right, so with that, I got a couple of trivia questions.
Can we wait and do that in the middle between talks?
Oh.
Or are you going to be gone?
No, I think we have time. We can do it between talks.
Yeah.
Trivia's going to have to wait. So I think we're giving away some T-shirts. Is that right? Excellent. So
Yeah, the t-shirts that he's wearing.
yeah, so these are cool NGConf T-shirts that we gave away at NGConf. Our Rebug ones. They got Rebug logos on the back. I think we told people that if you scan a QR code and do a couple things, that you get a free T-shirt. We were out of T-shirts in like less than 30 minutes.
It was about an hour.
Was it an hour?
They had to take a picture, tag us. And
Yeah, there's a whole you had to take a picture with the rocket and whatnot. But basically, T-shirts that were supposed to last for 2 or 3 days were gone within an hour. So we've since reordered some additional ones, very popular. Giving away a few tonight for trivia. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and step out of the way and bring up our first speaker. Tim is going to come up and talk to us about something that I'm very interested in. It's something that's actually getting a lot of buzz within the community, and if you haven't already checked it out, that's great, because here's your opportunity to learn from somebody tonight about it. And so with that, please give a big warm welcome to Tim, and we're going to talk about Storybook. Put that down there, and you can get out of the way.
Mic is on.
Hello, got the same problem I do.
Can you guys hear me through the mic? How about now? How about now?
Speak louder.
Louder?
Is it on?
Oh, I don't know. I put it in my pocket the way you gave it to me. Why do you turn it on?
There's a little on-off switch.
How about now?
There we go.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Jesse. So as Jesse said, my name is Tim Greenfield. A little bit about my background. I graduated, I was just talking to someone about this. I can't believe this. But I graduated from CU in the year 2000. So now I've been working as a professional software engineer for 18 years. In Denver and Boulder, mostly. A little bit in California. And I was just talking with a friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about how time has flown by. And to me, 2008, it still seems like at least the present, maybe the future. So I'm amazed at that it's already 2019. Wow. Most of my experience has been a little bit in media, a little bit in aviation, a little bit in hospitality. Over the years, I've used a lot of different programming languages, done a lot of different projects. I worked for a long time at a company called Jeppesen. I don't know if any of you guys are aware of that. That's a pretty cool place. And now, these days, I'm doing some freelance development with a couple of people I used to work with, and we're focusing mainly on Angular. So in one of our projects, we had the opportunity to go in and look at Storybook, and it really helped us with a specific problem, and it's cool technology. So today, in this talk, what I'd like to do is go over kind of the 5,000-foot view for you, show you what it looks like, how you use it, how you can get started real easily, and kind of show you the highlights. So what is Storybook? That's kind of a hard question to answer. Even the maintainers of it have a little bit of trouble explaining what Storybook does. The history of it is kind of interesting. So Storybook was started by a Sri Lankan company called Kadira. And they were big contributors to the Meteor community. And they had actually started Storybook as just a side project that they were working on. And they made it as a React app and to support the React community. And it kind of had traction from day one, but it wasn't what they did. So I didn't write the dates down, but this was maybe, I don't know, a few years back. Something happened and they had a disagreement amongst themselves, and they kind of shut the company down and left Storybook kind of hanging out on GitHub. And there was a little minor uproar in the community that was using it, and they got 2 new maintainers to come in and kind of take over. And it was possibly always open source, but after that it was definitely an open source project. So that's kind of how it got to where it is today. And I want to give you guys, so when we talk about what is Storybook, I'm going to give you 3 different viewpoints on it. 2 viewpoints from the 2 main maintainers of it, and then what they say about themselves, because it is a little bit hard to describe exactly what it does, because it does a lot of things. So the Storybook website itself, it says that Storybook runs outside your app. It allows you to develop UI components in isolation, which can improve component reuse, testability, and development speed. You can build quickly without having to worry about application-specific dependencies. That's kind of their mission statement. That's what they're trying to achieve. Now, the #1 main developer, he's a guy named Michael Shillman, and he posts on Medium. I'll have his information at the end. So for him, Storybook is an environment for defining, developing, and testing UI components. It's based on the idea of stories, or individual component states that can be viewed in isolation. Applications can then be developed in piece by piece and efficiently assembled from working parts. Building applications from components improves testability, documentation, and collaboration. And then the other guy, his name is Norbert, he's the other main developer. He's I think he has more of an artistic flair. For him, he was drawn to Storybook because it made developing beautiful UIs organized, repeatable, and efficient. And so I'm kind of in the Michael category. I think it's great for collaboration. It's great for reuse. It helps you build components at the individual level. And if you're going to spend a lot of time building a component and making it nice, if you use Storybook, you can publish it, get it out there, and people can find it. That's what, I don't really have a pointer, but this side over, well, I don't know if I should walk away from the camera, but this side, this Component Explorer, it's a big help in finding out what other people have done so that you can actually go use the work that someone else in your company has made. Okay, so right now, the last little factoids I want to give you. Storybook has 39,000 stars on GitHub. It has almost 20,000 commits, 711 contributors, 505 releases, and Norbert says that by numbers, it's larger than most commercial software projects. It's being used by Dropbox, Microsoft, Airbnb, tons of big names. A lot of people with big organizations are using Storybook because it's for its collaborative features. In the use cases, why you might want to use it, Component Explorer, being able to find other people's work. Style guide, it's kind of a self-documenting UI documentation / style guide right off the bat. It's a good sandbox. If you want to play with a component, if you want to work with it, tweak it, see how it looks, share it with someone else, you can use Storybook. It's a good workshop, and it's a library of all your work. Those are the things it allows you to do. Okay. So today, what I want to do is give you a sneak peek of where we're going to end up to give you some context for what we're trying to do today. We're going to make a real simple app and then show 3 components in Storybook. I'll go over the anatomy of a story, what you have to do to make something show up in Storybook, the layout of Storybook, how you can use it. And then I'm going to tell you how to install add-ons, because add-ons are kind of important. Out of the box, Storybook doesn't have all the functionality it can have. So by installing add-ons, you can really increase what it can do. And then I'll demonstrate the workflow that I use when I use it. And the last thing I'll talk about is in Angular, if you want to inject state, if you want to use NGRX, you have to play a little trick. I'll show you what that is. And I'll show you how you can get some easy visual automation testing right out of the box for almost nothing. Okay, so first sneak peek. Let's go look at this. Here it is. Ooh, stay there. Can I make this bigger? No. Oh. Let me unplug it. Come on. All right, so here we go. This is what we're going to try to make today. It's a news card list. It's a CDK, so I'm using Angular material for all the work that's inside of here. It's going to use a CDK scroll viewport to show an infinite list of material cards. The cards are going to display an image, a title, a subtitle, a description, and then these 3 action buttons. Did it just flash? These 3 action buttons. Stay. Okay. So, okay, we got it. Here's how it looks. So this is just localhost 4200, right? This is your basic ng serve. Here's the same thing. Here's the same thing running inside of Storybook. So for reference, what we want to do is get that same component that we were looking at. Actually, it's a collection of components. Here this is running inside of Storybook, the infinite list. This is built out of simpler components. So one of the simpler components is this material card. So an infinite list of material cards, here's the material card it is. This card's built out of a simpler component, which I called the news card actions. So what I want to show you how you can do is start with a simple component, news card actions, build it into a more complicated component, the material card, and build that into a more complicated component that actually has injected state. So that's the goal for this discussion. Now, let me see if this is visible. If not, we'll switch to Visual Studio. Oh, installing Storybook first. Okay, to install Storybook, one of the premises of Storybook is that it's very easy to install. It runs outside of your app. That's one of the first things they tell you. So to install Storybook, you use npx, run this command on the top of the screen. It's going to do a few things for you. It's going to update your package.json with 2 new scripts, one to build the dev version of Storybook and one that will make Storybook build a static website, kind of a production version of Storybook that you can host somewhere so you can share. It'll install the packages that it needs to run. It's going to install a few add-ons for you. And then one nice thing that it does, it's going to modify your tsconfig.app.json to actually exclude the stories that you make, so it won't modify what you're doing in your production or your dev builds. It's also going to make 2 special directories. One is called .storybook, and that's where you put your configuration information, and then the other one is /source/stories, which is kind of its default collection place to add your Storybook information. All right. So let's go look. At a story. Okay, here's an Angular component called news card action. In this directory, the same directory, I like to put all my stories in the same directory as my components. So in the directory of the news card action component, I have to make one place where Storybook could maybe use a little help is a better schematic for it, because there is a lot of manual file creation and cut and paste. But I made a file called news card action stories. And in this story, I put the most basic story you can write. A basic, is this visible? Is this? Okay. So a basic Storybook story has 4 or 5 sections. The first section you always have to do are a bunch of imports to import the Storybook stories of and module metadata, and then whatever actions you may want. In addition, you have to import whatever modules you need to load into your story. That happens inside the story now, instead of in your app.module or whatever module you might have been using before. The second, maybe I should show this while we go through this. I have a feeling this is too small, but let's see. Can't see? Okay. So the second area that you usually fill out in a story is you want to make an actions away. So in Storybook, you can define actions and you can define properties. So you're going to define your actions in every story, and you're going to define your props. Each story, the definition of a story happens in the stories of function. You add decorators to your stories of function. Each decorator can install an add-on, or it can just install a module metadata, or you can add individual stories one at a time. So in this simple default story I'm showing you, I have something called Stories of News Card Action, which has a story called Default. I think I made this too small. Okay, so we can see these two names reflected in our module Explorer, News Card Action and Default. To define a story, what I do is I use the template definition. So I just give it a news card actions that has whatever data I need to pass into my component and whatever events it responds to. So all the values in here should match up with the props in this prop dictionary that comes after it. And that's basically all there is to it to making stories. We're going to do this same process over and over. Define modules, import add-ons, make a template, define its data and its actions in Storybook, and that's how easy it is. So now that we've kind of gone through that basics, we can come into Storybook, and we can start changing whatever we want. Maybe we think the color should be accent instead of primary. Maybe we think that looks ugly. We like primary better. We can put it back to primary. Oh, come back here. Switch it back. We can edit this HTML, we can edit our CSS, see it live in Storybook, play with our components, tweak them, get them just right. We can zoom in on this, put a grid on it. We can come over here to our story. This data property that we pass, whatever data that our components need, this is all controlled through the property array. So right now I'm passing in default data. I could change this. I could take this default data and change a few things about it, which I do right here. So I changed the has-like variable and the num-likes. This is just some of the data that this component can take to show you how this works. So we can change our data around and view our component in different states. So now this is all fine and good, but it's not that useful, right? So we could kind of do this in Chrome or anything. So Storybook really gets interesting when we get to the idea of add-ons. Right now I have no add-ons installed. I'm going to come in here and install the add-ons that I like to use. Let's take a look at which ones they are before we install them. So I like to install 5 add-ons when I use Storybook. The first one is console. It allows me to see the console messages that are being output in the Storybook UI, which kind of it's helpful when something goes wrong. You get a heads up and you don't have to keep bringing up and down the console. CSS resources is a nice one. It allows you to add some CSS snippets to your components to see, for whatever reason you might want to do that. Viewport gives you control of your viewport. Knobs is the most important add-on. It's really the one that you want to use. It allows you to dynamically interact with components, which changes the game a little. And then we have an accessibility checker that will make sure we're following the accessibility rules. So to install an add-on in Storybook, this is another area where Storybook needs to have a little bit of help. It's a 3-step process. First, you do an npm install of the add-on you want to use. That process I've already done. Once it's installed through npm, you have to come into the storybook.storybook/addons.js file, import it. So fine. And then unfortunately, you also have to come into either your config.js or each individual story, import it again and then add it as a decorators. So this little batch of code is going to add, let me back up and say that everything you do in config.js, this is a good tip, it will happen to all your stories. So if you do something in config.js, you're doing it globally. Any of these commands that we're doing in config.js, we could do in an individual story too to just affect one story. So for this demo, I'm installing these add-ons to every story that we write from here on out. You start the decorators with the add decorator command. So I'm doing with A11y with knobs with CSS resources. And then I'm adding 2 parameters to my CSS resource to show you how it works. Now, did I save this? Yes. I find it's always a good practice to reload the page when you're changing anything in the .storybook directory. Okay, the first thing you'll notice is now we have console messages showing up. That's good. The second thing I'd like to show you is, okay, here's our CSS resources. Here I'm affecting the .actions class. I'm going to put a solid 1 pixel border around my actions buttons. So this can be useful in a lot of different circumstances. I can check the accessibility. This is kind of nice. When you're dealing with accessibility, to be able to look at just one thing at a time and not get problems from a big, large page of HTML, it makes it easier to hunt down what's wrong. So in this case, if I come in here and look at what the issue is, I see that this looks kind of suspect. It looks like to me I've done a misspelling. Labels. Twice, 3 times. So it looks like I had a typo, a cut and paste typo in there. Let me save it, and let's see if that fixes it. Great. So I can check the accessibility of all my individual components one at a time, make sure that they're working right. Okay, so now, like I said, knobs is kind of the greatest add-on in Storybook. To enable knobs, we do what we just talked about. You add it as a decorator. And then you can use some special keywords. So knobs gives you the ability to deal with different data types. They have like string type, number type. I'm going to use the object type, which will take whatever I pass into it and show it to me in Storybook as JSON data, and allow me now to start doing some more interesting things. Okay, so now I can look at this. 10. Okay, that works great. 100, we're still okay. 1,000. Is it still flashing? It's okay. 1,000, so 1,000 you can see is a problem. Now, is that really an issue? I don't know. We'd have to have a talk with the designer. Is there going to be 1,000 comments coming in? Maybe yes, maybe no, but now we can look at it and we can have a conversation about it. Take this.
Can you hover over the thing 1,000 and actually see 1,000?
Well, let's see. I don't know. I never tried it. No.
Okay, thanks.
Let's see. So the number of likes, we can change it to 50. There's a little bit of logic in this button that says if you yourself, the person viewing the page, has liked the article, then it makes the accent color yellow. If you haven't, then it goes back to primary. So if we change the has liked to false, we can make sure that works. Great. We can see if the star works. Perfect. Do you want me to change the...
That's the one that we were using, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Did I push a wire?
No. It's just.
Tumblr does this when you're in browser.
I think you got it. Okay. So the last thing you'll be doing a lot in Storybook is changing the action, or responding to actions. The best practice that they recommend is exporting a constant, putting your actions in here. The reason that they recommend that you do this is because as you build your components up from simple to bigger, you're just going to keep reusing the old actions again. So this way you don't have to retap them out every single time. This action function is being imported from this add-on actions, which comes pre-installed with Storybooks. And it's going to take whatever it sees and display it in our console so that we can see what values were being passed to us when we interact with our components. Did I actually save this? I don't think I did. So let's see if it works. Okay, great. So it tells us unchanged. We can go in and look at what it's sending back to us. So this can be, if you're going through debugging, this could be a big help to easily be able to see what events you're getting passed from inside one component at a time without having to have your whole system running. All right. Now let's take this component. This is what they call a simple component and a pure component. It's all UI. It has no state except what you pass into it. It only displays what it's given. Now let's take this simple component and integrate it into a composite component. So a composite component is going to take one or more simple components and reuse them in the Storybook lingo. There's our news card action. Now I want to find news card. Here it is. I'm going to rename this story so Storybook will find it. This story is a lot like the last one. It does our same kind of pattern of importing Storybook, then importing the modules it needs to run, whatever those may be. In this case, it's material design stuff. It defines some test data, right? Defines some actions. Then it does stories of. Here's one other little trick. When you're writing a stories of, you can write this out with slashes. Every time you do a slash, it's going to make another nested directory. So if you want to have, test/composite/news card stories, put 2 slashes, you're going to get more nesting in the Storybook GUI. Okay, same thing. So we add a decorator. We put our module metadata. We import what we need to import so the component can load. We just define a template. We give it its test data. This component now has an extra action than the first one. The first news action only responded to the onChange of it. This one responds to onChange, it emits onChange and onView article. So now there's 2 actions. We make a prop array, and we make sure that these values match up with these keys, just like before. These values, these keys. So if that got saved, we can come in and we can, if I can find it, we can see our card. So here is our original component being aggregated into this larger component. Now in this case, I'm going to change the viewport to something like a small iPhone 5. So when I use Storybook, the reason that we started using this was because we were having a lot of trouble with the CDK scroll viewport. It's very picky about the height of items, and it does not like them changing at all on you. So we needed to come in and test every different way that this card could change heights. And we found a lot of things that we didn't think of at first that was causing it to be off by a pixel or 2, which would cause us jumpy scrolling. So what we would do is we would come in with our knob, and we would take some of the text and say, long title, what happens? Oh, it gets bigger. Okay, so now we know that's an issue. How about subtitle? So far, so good. Oh, that's even a bigger issue. Not only is it's not changing, making the card bigger, but it's making it go left and right on us. So let's fix this one that I just did. Why in the world is the subtitle field making the card grow left and right? So when I use Storybook, what I do, when I find an issue like that, the first thing I do is I add a new story. You can add as many stories as you want for every state that interests you. So in this case, I'm interested in the long story state. I can cut and paste what I had, add it in, call it long story state. I can copy my data, long story state data. I just call it long story state equals my test news article. Let's change the source. The source is what's going into that field. Oop. What is it, ID? Yeah. I am? Oh yeah, you're right. Thank you. Come back. And let's say it's the name. Okay. So I want it to be a long name. Do I have enough parentheses? Yes, I do. And I'm going to come down to my data, change my data source for this guy, cross my fingers. Storybook makes a new story for me with the save data that we just had. So now we have a way to test this over and over repeatedly. And here we have the bad behavior. Okay, so come back. We can fix it. Fairly simple. It seems that we've forgotten Matt card subtitle. And we're going to need to give it a max width of like 50 VW. We need to give it a white space, no wrap. We need to tell it what to do with the overflow, right? And then we need to do something maybe like text overflow, I don't know. Yeah, let's do ellipsis. 1, 2, 3, 4, is that it? Hey, much better. All right, so now we got one problem down. So that was kind of my workflow. Find a problem, make a Storybook story that exposed the problem, fix it, leave the Storybook story there so we can test it in the future again, making sure it stays fixed.
Are you able to save the media query selector you have there, the profile of the item? Like this story is for.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know of any way to do it. Like, so it always starts back up in that state. I think there is a way to send parameters to Storybook that I've never used that maybe it could do that, but yeah, not that I know of. Not that I know how. There very well may be. Yeah, it is nice though. Sometimes I wish I could start it right back up in the same state that it was in. Okay. So now we have that little problem finished. Let's take it one more level. Let's take our story, let's take the story that we just dealt with and let's import the news card component into an even bigger story. Okay, same pattern. Imports, well, ignore that part for now. The stories of, we add our decorators, our module stuff that it needs to run. You can see this is getting bigger and bigger. As we get bigger and bigger, we're having to import more stuff because we're using more pieces of Angular material. And then here's just like before, right? We add a story, default as a template. We give it the template name, or the template information, which in this case is the news list. It takes more data, so the props array is bigger. But in this case, we're kind of changing patterns. Instead of taking individual MAC card data type props, now we're sending in the information that the state needs to load the state for us from the web. So when we come back to this, we'll see this time we're just getting whatever is on the New York Times right now. So if you were doing this in a big project, and let's say that you were using something like NGRX, you may very well need to do something to initialize your state. I've made this so simple that it doesn't need to do anything. It just loads whatever you give it. If you did need to do something, the little trick that they like to use in Storybook is they have a key, I guess you'd call it, that's the same as template except it's component. And the component takes an Angular component as its input instead of a template string. And using their example name, they call it the host dispatch component. They'll define a real simple component right here. They'll use the template that you would typically use inside of Storybook itself, whatever you need to start your Angular component up. And this will give you access to a constructor. So if you need to do something, you know, like this, and then do a, whoops, I don't have it loaded, so my autocomplete's not working. So if you need to do this to get something initialized, this is how you can get access to dependency injection. So on mine, since there is no dependency injection really needed, just to show the point, I've made one with the host dispatch component, and I've told it to load the news from Wired instead of the New York Times. And that gives us data from a different data source. Okay, so one of the last things I want to talk about is if you want to do some automated visual testing, the one button I haven't really covered at all is this one right here. As you're making these different stories, you can access them in kind of a special URL that follows a pattern. No, that won't affect this. Well, so it's a little hard to read, but this URL is going to an iframe inside of Storybook that will render your component without any of the Storybook's GUI with it. So if you want to render your components outside of the Storybook GUI, just how they look, you can use this in combination with Jest to do automated visual testing real easy. All you have to do is get your stories to show up, and you're basically there. They have an add-on called Story Shots, which automates it even more, and if you're already using Jest, it looks like a very simple install. I haven't used the Story Shots yet, but it's worth looking into. Okay, so to wrap up, a good spot for information is Storybook. I think it's just JS. Well, it is .js.org. Storybook.js.org. They have a good getting started project that will walk you through kind of a make a to-do list tutorial. If you want to go on Medium, these are the two people that are the kind of the full-time paid maintainers of Storybook today. The first guy's name is Michael Schulman, and then Nord de Langen. The code that I was working with today, you can find it on GitHub. My name is Greenfield T. I have an SB tutorial in the demo ready branch. And then let me show you this one more time. Yeah, so this Storybook gives you a way to build a static API of what you've done. So for no extra work, if you just use Storybook to test your components, you can do a npm run build Storybook, and it'll output your site as a single page app. And so I'm hosting this on Google Cloud. It took me about 5 seconds to get it on Google Cloud and share it with the world. Okay. And if you want to contact me, I mostly respond to email. You could try Twitter, but email is actually much better. So my email is timg@increatesoftware.com. And I think with that, does anyone want to ask any questions or see anything specific about it?
So I used Storybook on my last project, and it was a love-hate relationship.
Yeah. What did you hate?
One of our big struggles was you have to do an Angular import, and then you have to do imports in the decorator also of everything that you wanted to use, and if you didn't get both of those, it would just fail silently with a blank page.
Do you want to know a trick?
Sure.
Here's a trick that I found out that I don't think is documented. Anything that you can do inside of stories of, you can move to the storybook/config.js, including this. So if I was doing a whole project, I think I would try to do my module metadata imports in the Storybook config and just import everything in one shot.
Do you think this is because it's built on React and not pure Angular?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think that this started life as a React-centric project, and they still use some terms and have some ideas from where they're that's where their initial focus was. But I'm with you. That's what I hate about it too.
Yeah, the other frustration we had is that we would build some components in Storybook, and then when we rolled them into the app, imported them into the app, and used them in the same monolith code, they would look and behave differently, which would cause no end of frustration.
I bet so. I don't know. I would like to speak with you maybe after, because I don't know. I'd like to know how the behavior changed. Yeah.
I like the concept, though.
Yeah, it is a great concept.
Do you know what accessibility tooling that Storybook is using under the hood for audits?
It uses Babel Webpack extensively. As we were doing this is what it was. Can I make? Oh, I know. This is what it was outputting as we were running. So when you install it, it installs Babel. It installs its own TS config. It does its own Webpack. It does a pretty good job installing, so I've never really had to go in and figure out exactly how it's configured Webpack to build the projects. But I don't know if that answers your question completely, but that's how it's working. And one of my love-hate relationships with this slows me down. Sometimes I use Emacs for editing, and it starts making temporary files inside of directories and setting Webpack off nonstop, and it will just grind my system to a halt.
All right, great.
Okay.
Great job, man. But you still want to come here, just come on down. This is actually an open space for us. We'd love to have you come in for the day, hang out. Chris, how was it? Was it fun?
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah. It's not too loud. It's usually pretty quiet, especially on days that we're doing meetups typically. Some days it gets a little raucous in here, but and my son might shoot you with a Nerf gun, but
I had to avoid a Nerf fight this morning.
Oh, yeah. So that happens. So with that, I'd like to, and your talk is on?
Accessibility.
Accessibility, awesome. So Chris is going to talk about accessibility, something that I think we all need to know a lot more about, and that it's something that's being requested a lot more in our web applications. So with that, let's give it up for Chris tonight and learn a little bit more about accessibility.
Screen. Hello. All right. I'll probably have to take it off to do the audio with that video, but that's okay.
No, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing? Good? Does everybody have a drink? If you drink, cheers to everybody. Huh? Come on, wake up. Everybody eat. I hope. Let's see.
Where's HDMI at? Sweet. Yeah, I just got straight HDMI in this machine. Word.
All right. Here's
If we need 'em.
batteries, if we need them.
All right, I think I got 45 minutes here, so let me time this. Let's start. Sweet. All right, so everybody's got a drink. Cool. Everybody ate. Sweet. So in addition to the awesome code of conduct that is over here, you rarely see that at events. You usually get code of conducts either in a Slack or an email, right, or on the conference website. You never actually get them in like a printed version at the door. But I also have my own code of conduct, and it's pretty easy. Don't be a jerk. So if you're a jerk, it's not good. It's not good for the community. It's not good for the scene. So this, in addition to that, I would appreciate it tremendously. Thank you also to Rocky Mountain Angular. It's the first time being out here speaking. I'm originally from Detroit. I've been here, let's see, today's the 26th. I've been here 26 days. So thank you so much for having me come out. I also love the developer community. So if you are on Twitter, so this is an accessibility talk. I do talk really loud. I like to move around a lot, but I don't have much room to move here. I will be asking questions. So if you can raise your hand, great, raise your hand. If you can't raise your hand, a wink, a nod, a whistle, whatever the case may be. But how many in this room right now have Twitter and are actively on Twitter in the developer community? Raise your hand. Oh, do you know how much that upsets me? I've been to so many events and nobody in the room has a Twitter. Like, how does everybody keep up with the developer community if you're not on Twitter? We live on Twitter. None of you would know about me if you weren't in here this room right now. Right? So, with that being said, if you are on Twitter, if you decide to do it during this talk, if you're on social media stuff, hashtag developer community. I love the developer community. Back when I was in Detroit, I helped to organize meetups in the city. I helped to organize conferences. I'm a big conference speaker. I write about the web. I talk about the web. I'm not here for me. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I'm here for you in the back. I love the developer community. You guys are my lifeblood. Everybody's in my lifeblood when I usually go to these events. And it's a safe space, right? So if I crack a joke on you and you laugh, great. Crack one on me. That's kind of the interaction I like. It makes me feel human. This is also the official hashtag from what I'm told of this event for the meetups in general for Rocky Mountain Angular. So if you're on Twitter, you're doing the Twitter thing. If you tag it RM Angular as well, that'll be sweet. Then I'll be able to find those. You'll be able to find my slides when I tweet them. So yeah, that's a good hashtag along with developer community. This is a video I always show before all of my accessibility talks. Now, I give accessibility talks all around the world. But I always show this video. This is from Apple. Now, I'm not sponsored by Apple. I'm not getting paid by Apple, right? I'm not getting endorsed by Apple. But this is a video I always show to kind of prove a point so we can all just kind of level set. So hopefully the audio plays. If not, I'll just unplug this and play it here. Yeah, so that's not going to work. That's fine. We're going to do this.
Want to work with it, tweak it, see how it looks, share it with someone else, you can use
Wow.
Storybook.
That's actually the live stream.
People think that having a disability is a barrier. But that's not the way I see it.
Everybody hear that?
You can catch up with friends.
Ready?
You can capture a moment with your family. One face, small face, focus lock. And you can start the day bright and early. You can take a trip to somewhere new. Concentrate on every word of a story.
A bird began to sing. Jack opened his eyes.
You can take the long way home. Or edit a film like this one. When technology is designed for everyone, it lets anyone do what they love, including me.
Sweet. That's a really, really powerful video. When you see that, it makes you think, wow, the web is bigger than I am, right? I can build stuff all day long that I think is cool. I've done it. We've all done it. We don't matter. None of us matter when it comes to building accessible solutions. Unless you yourself are experiencing some type of disability. They are the people that matter, the people out there. Right? So the reason I show this is just to show you that the world is bigger than just us when it comes to building accessible user experiences that are amazing. This is another thing I like to show. I show different little clips of things after that video and all my different accessibility talks. This isn't actually like a Braille machine reader that will read, written word, and it'll spit out the Braille in pins and holes. This was created by a handful of amazing female engineers at MIT. Now, this isn't really digital accessibility, but it's an accessibility win nonetheless. Why? I get this question a lot. I've gotten this question at work, at multiple jobs. I've gotten this question in the hallway tracks, because that's where the relationships are made. If you ever go to a conference, going to talks is great. You learn from others in the hallway track. That's where the relationships are made. And I get this question a lot. Why? Why do you care so much about accessibility, Chris? And the answer is easy. My mom is a baby boomer generation. She just had her 64th, 65th birthday in May. So she's of the baby boomer generation, right? My mom wears glasses, so she has trouble seeing. So there's one disability right there. That's a visual disability. I have to speak very loud for her to hear me. Knock on wood, she doesn't have a hearing aid yet. But her hearing's starting to go. So right there we have a hearing disability, right? I can tell my mom that I'm speaking at this meetup. I could have told her this 3 hours ago. I could talk to her in an hour. She'd ask me, what did you do today, son? She'd have no recollection that I was speaking here. But she can remember something from September 14th, 1977, like that. Cognitive disability. Okay. Mobility disabilities. She has arthritis. She shakes when she writes. Her handwriting isn't that great anymore. It's kind of hard to read. It's a mobility disability. Now, knock on wood again, she doesn't have what we call temporary impairments. So she doesn't have a broken hand, a broken finger, right? There's always a possibility that could happen. She could fall. She falls all the time because she gets dizzy. But knock on wood, she hasn't hurt herself too bad. So she has 4 out of the 5 types of disabilities that we try and target on the web: visual, hearing, mobility, and cognitive, except for self-impairment disabilities. Now, if I can make an accessible user experience for her at the end of the day, I've done my job. And if you're sitting in this room tonight thinking, well, shit, what is my why? I hope after this talk is over, you can go home and reflect on what your why is. And then you'll understand the importance, if you don't already understand the importance, of why building accessible experiences is something that we have to do. Thank you all for coming. This title of this talk is I Can't See, Low Vision A11y in Users. My name is Chris. You can catch me on Twitter at, let's see if this is going to work. Yep, cool. There we go. At Salt and Burnham. Do we have any Supernatural fans in the audience? This is a safe space, so you can raise your hand. I'm a Supernatural fan.
You mean like of ghosts, or is there a band?
There's a TV show called Supernatural. It's been on for close to 16 years, a long time, 2005. I can't math, so. Yep, so if you are on Twitter, follow me, tag me. The slides for this talk are also available in a bit.ly link. I can tweet these out. Tweet them out. You have to be on Twitter to get them. So do yourself a favor. I work for a company called Tuft and Needle. Is anybody familiar with Tuft and Needle?
They're the ones who, those billboards, they're like,
Amazing, right?
I don't remember.
You love their billboards.
Yeah, that's
Do you have a Tuft and Needle mattress?
I don't, but I know who they are because of the billboards.
You need to get one.
A billboard?
A mattress. We have pillows. We have sheet sets. We have a new adjustable frame. It's pretty dope. But yeah, so Tuft and Needle is the original bend-a-box company. That's the company I work for. Our HQ's in Phoenix. I work remote. Amazing, amazing company. So if you want to know more about that, let me know. I used to have slides a little bit about me, right? Not to like be boisterous or anything like that, to humanize with you and let you know like I'm a human, right? I'm just like you. You might not care about this talk at all. But if I tell you a little bit about me, you might have something in common with me, right? And then we can rap about something, right? So I used to have slides on like tattoos, because I'm covered in tattoos, horror movies, because horror is my life, slides on being from Detroit and community, stuff like that. And I got some feedback one time from an event, and it pretty much went like, Chris, we don't care about you. We don't care about you. We care about your slides and your talk. And it hurt me in the feels. And it really upset me. But you know what? I started thinking about it. I'm like, I don't really care if you don't care about me, because I'm going to tell you anyways. So I put it back in. So a little bit more about me. I am a Google developer, expert in web technologies. I'm a Microsoft MVP in developer technologies. I'm also an Oracle Groundbreaker ambassador, international speaker. I'm the founder of Viewtroit, which I kind of had to give up since moving here. Host of Tales from the Script, which is a podcast that I host. And I do like tattoos and horror, so there you go. If you like tattoos and horror, we can talk about it after the talk. So this is also my podcast, Tales from the Script. It's a front-end focused podcast mixed with a little bit of horror. So if you like horror and front-end stuff, give it a listen. I haven't recorded in a long time. I did 22 events last year around the world, and I kind of had to put it on the back burner. But since moving here, I'm taking a break from speaking. I got another lineup of speakers I'm going to be putting on. And if you want to be on a podcast, let me know. You don't have to be like the coolest of the cool in the industry. I'm not that kind of person. You don't have to sign up. We'll get you on. I'm thinking about getting, I have Mike Hardington. Well, Mike's a buddy of mine. We're probably going to get him on talking about Ionic and Angular or Ionic and Vue or whatever the case may be. So if you want to be on it, and you've never been on a podcast, you want to give it a go and you got something to talk about, hit me up. We'll get you on. Who's heard this before? I can't see that. Everybody in this room, and if you don't raise your hand, you're lying, or you can't raise your hand. When you hear someone say, I can't see that, what do you think they mean? You think they can't see it because the colors are off? Right? Maybe they just literally cannot see it. Maybe their vision is blurred. Right? You don't know, but you hear this all the time. I can't see that. If you took your glasses off right now, would you be able to see that? No. Maybe so, maybe not. This is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about low vision and accessibility. Did you know that there are 20% of people around the world that have some type of disability? Not just visual, but all 5 plus maybe more that I talked about. 20%. That's a small number, right? 20%. Turn that into whole numbers for a second. You have 7 billion people around the world, give or take. Okay? 1.4 billion of them have some type of disability. There's your 20%. So 20% doesn't look like a small number anymore when you compare it to a whole number. And this all comes from the World Health Organization. This was from a few years back. These numbers have been updated since. The population is higher. The people with disabilities is higher. Right? But Chris, we don't have people with disabilities that work at a company. Come on. Our stuff's internal. People inside the house use our stuff. We're not customer focused. And I call bullshit every time. Every time. Internalize that. 20% of your workforce has some type of disability. They're not just going to come up to you and be like, hey, how you doing? I'm Chris. I'm colorblind. Nice to meet you. Is that green or red? Tell me. Quit twiddling your thumbs. They're not going to do that. Right? I worked with developers who were colorblind. I worked with developers who were deaf. I've worked with QAs and BAs who were colorblind. People in-house have some type of disability. So internalize that. Push back next time you hear somebody say that. Who has heard this term before? A11y or ALI or ALI, right? Do you know what this term means? The technical term, not what it stands for, but what it means. Now, there's a lot of debate on Twitter, and it's a hill I'm going to die on. People don't think that we should be using the terms A11y and I18n and L10n because it's not inclusive enough. Do you know what this means? It comes down to education. If you know what it means, shout it out. The technical term, not what it stands for. It's called a numeronym. The combination of letters and numbers together is called a numeronym. So you take the A in accessibility, you take the Y, you count the numbers in between, you smash them together, and you get A11Y. I18N, you've seen this, right, for internationalization. L10N for localization. Kubernetes even has theirs. K8S, right? These are all numeronyms you'd see in the wild on the web. It's just another way of shortening the word down for easy readability, easily to write the word down, and just explain things in the context. So anytime you hear the term A11y or ALI or ALI in the context of web and software, not in the context of being a male ally, which every man in this audience should be, 9 times out of 10, they're talking about web accessibility. So, what is accessibility? It's a great, great question because it kind of gets skewed a little bit here and there, depending on who you talk to, the environment you're in, wherever the case may be. This is from the W3. Web accessibility means that people with disabilities can use the web. I don't like what the W3 says, though. I don't like it at all. Reason being, this is an open web, correct? Yes, Chris, it's an open web. And if an open web is an inclusive web, and an inclusive web means web for all, then this sounds a lot better. Web accessibility means that everyone can use the web, not just people with disabilities. We are not creating 2 separate experiences or 5 separate experiences because you know what? We have to create one for the visually impaired, the hearing impaired, the mobility impaired, the cognitive impaired. You know what? Those people that broke their hands, we need to make one for them too. We don't do that. We're not doing that. The web was made for everybody. That was Sir Tim Berners-Lee's intention, was for everybody, right? It is our job as workers on the web to create amazing user experiences for everyone. So that's why I like this a lot more. Here's another one. This is from WebAIM. The web is not a barrier to people with disabilities. It is the solution. The key word and the key term to rip out of the sentence is solution. That is what we do on a day-to-day basis. As workers on the web, it is our job to create solutions. That's what we do. I don't care if you're a designer or a stakeholder. It is your job. If it's not, then what are you here for? Right? And it starts with design. It all starts with the design. Designers have to understand web content accessibility guidelines. Designers have to understand color contrast ratios and what passes. They have to understand the DOM a little bit, the document object model. They have to understand tab index a little bit. Focus styles. They have to understand all about those and how you should never remove focus styles. They should understand workflow and user flow, how the user thinks, personas. Once that comes into play, they make an accessible experience, they design an accessible experience, then they can move it onto your developers, and your developers start doing their part. This is one for me. Accessibility is not a requirement. It is a must. You must care. It's a moral obligation as a worker on the web. So when we're talking about these different types of disabilities, I kind of already mentioned them with my mom. We have 5 main ones that we try to target, right? We have hearing disabilities. What kind of hearing disabilities? Well, we have conductive hearing loss. We have sensory neural hearing loss. We have a mixture of both of those. It's called mixed hearing loss. We have cognitive disabilities, problem solving, writing comprehension, reading comprehension. Autism and that spectrum is cognitive disability. We have mobility disabilities, arthritis, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, MS. These are mobility disabilities that we're trying to keep in the back of our mind when we're developing and shipping these accessible experiences. Temporary impairments, they're not disabilities. If somebody tells you it's a temporary disability, tell them they're not right. It's not a disability. You break your hand, it's going to heal. You break your finger, it's going to heal. How many in this room have been a parent with a newborn child? Raise your hand. Did you ever find it hard to work on the web, use your machine, and hold your screaming child? That is a temporary impairment, believe it or not. You can't really put your child down because all they're going to do is kick and scream. You need to work. You can't control a mouse, a keyboard, and hold a child at the same time. Your child will get older. You'll be able to set them down, they'll run rampant on your house and go crazy, right? But that's also a temporary impairment that we're trying to target. But what we're going to talk today about is vision. We're going to talk about vision impairments. So we've got a whole slew of them that I'm going to talk about. Not all of them because there are a bunch. But I do have a 4-letter acronym that I want you to memorize, sleep, eat, breathe, whatever you want to do. We should be basing all of our development efforts around this 4-letter acronym. It's kind of like the fundamental building blocks of web accessibility. The first one being perceivable. Is the experience easily readable? Can I view the images? Can I use a screen reader with this experience? Operable. Can I solely just use a keyboard if I had to? Right? Are the interactions easy for me to understand and me to use? And are there timers on certain actions? How many have gone to Ticketmaster, went to go purchase tickets, and they give you a countdown on how fast you can do it? Do you know how hard and upsetting that is to somebody that has some type of disability that cannot focus on that or that causes anxiety? Or they don't have the mobility and they can't move quick enough to purchase a ticket. And then they lose their tickets. Nothing should have a timer. Understandable. Do I understand the language that's presented to me? Are there supplemental representations for the things I might not understand? Maybe like associated pictures or logos or iconography. And then we have robust. Can the experience be viewed across a wide range of devices, like sip and puff machines, or braille machines, or tap machines? But of all 4 of these, the one that I want everybody to kind of walk away and remember today is perceivable. We're going to talk about perceivability out of all 4 of these, right? Little caveat too, poor vision is not low vision. Poor vision can be corrected with glasses and contacts. Low vision cannot. You're stuck with it. It's a disease, right? And you'll see that as I'm talking about different types of low vision that we encounter on the web. So we're going to talk about visual abilities and disabilities for a little bit. Users with full use of their vision, they can see things around them, right? Of course, you can see everything around you when you have your full vision. Culturally speaking, of course. People with vision, with good vision, without low vision, they can make out street signs, street lights, red, amber, green, right? They can distinguish that. They can read text and pictures and documents. This is The Raven. Any Edgar Allan Poe fans in the audience? Sweet. Oh, good. Sweet. They can make out symbols in certain iconography that's kind of universal, right? And they can also perceive color. Color being a very, very big thing on the web that is very often overlooked. Most people, I would say, out there have the luxury of being able to see all these things, right? They can see the Mona Lisa. They know the differences between hot pink, magenta, purple, blue, red across the spectrum. Some people out there don't have those abilities, right? They have these experiences they deal with day in and day out. Those are the people that we're trying to target with these. So the first on the list, we're going to talk about color blindness or color vision deficiency, CVD for short. Well, what is it? What does that mean, color blindness? Does that mean that you don't see colors at all? Not really. Does it mean that you only see in shades of gray? Well, not really. Does it mean I have the vision of a dog or a deer and if it moves, I see it? Not really. Color vision deficiency is the inability to distinguish certain shades of color. Now, what does that mean? That means that you can't there's certain shades of color that you can't see, right? Or some other colors that represent other colors, right? You might have a blue, and you might not be able to see blue. So that color gets replaced with another color. But you might not ever see what blue is. Or what blue actually is in your eyes is a completely other color to somebody that has normal color vision, right? So this is why color contrast matters so much. So how many people out there are colorblind? If you had to guess, how many men in the world today are colorblind? If you had to guess, just throw out a number. 5%. Let's do like a ratio, like 1 in so many or like 2 in so many. 1 in 20. What else? 1 in 10. 1 in 3. 1 in 12. 1 in 12 men has some type of color vision deficiency. Now, what about women? How many women do you think are affected by some type of color vision deficiency? What else? 1 in 30. What else? 1 in 200. 1 in 200 women experience color vision deficiency. Do you know why that is? And it's an odd way of looking at things, but there is a reason why more men have color vision deficiency than women.
Is it just a lack of chromosomal material, basically?
It's passed down from the mother. Fun fact. The gene is passed down from the mom. I was doing research on this a couple years ago when I was writing this talk. Come to find out, a study in the UK, the male population in the UK is drastically higher than the female population. So the majority of the UK is colorblind because there's more men, right? These are numbers I was reading. These are facts and statistics I came up with. So I don't have a color vision deficiency, but if I did, this is from my mom. Thanks, Mom. I appreciate it so much. So we have different types of color vision deficiencies that we experience out there on the web. This is normal, which isn't really a color vision deficiency. This would be like a normal color vision, right? People have that. So we have deuteranopia. This is a reduced sensitivity to green light. It is the most common type of color vision deficiency you'll see out there. So most people out there in the wild have deuteranopia as a CVD. We have protanopia, which changes just slightly from deuteranopia. This is a reduced sensitivity to red light. And last but not technically least, we have tritanopia. Tritanopia is a reduced sensitivity to blue light, and it is extremely rare. But we have one more type of color vision deficiency out there. What do you think that is? No, that I think red-green, I think is deuteranopia. Yep. One more. Any more guesses? Monochromatic. Monochromatic. 1 in 33,000 people experience life in shades of gray. So going back to the original statement of, does it mean you see in shades of gray? Not all the time. But if you do experience monochromatic color vision deficiency, that is your life. So let's say we have an amazing website that we built and is full of awesome colors. Rainbow and pastels and a bunch of weird shit. Do you think that's going to matter to a user that sees it like this? No, it doesn't. The content's what's going to matter. So we have another visual impairment. Visual acuity, okay? Now when I say the words visual acuity, now how many people in here are really nerdy and like movies? I'm just going to give you hints on this. Because every time I give this talk, nobody has the answer for this, and it just blows my mind because I can't be the biggest nerd in this room. When I say the words visual acuity, what comes to mind? I'm going to let you think on it for a minute. Because nobody ever gets this. I think one person got it in Kansas City. Come on, visual acuity.
T-Rex.
Thank you so much. A T-Rex. Visual acuity. His visual acuity is based on movement. He'll lose you if you don't move. It's a famous line by Alan Grant. Come on, you nerds. Get with it. It's an old movie. Oh, it's classic. This is not the type of visual acuity I'm talking about. This has nothing to do with moving and that type of thing. Because we all know what happens when you move in front of a T-Rex, right? You end up like Gennaro. And that is not the look I'm going for. I doubt anybody in this room wants to end up like him, so I digress. So what is it? What does visual acuity mean? That's another great question. How many have seen this chart before? How many have been 20 feet away from this chart? I have, because I wear glasses when I'm at the computer. Does anybody know what this chart is called? Did you say a pie chart? An eye chart? Pie, eye. Close. One letter off. 2, 3, I don't know. If it has to do with math, I don't math. This is a visual acuity chart or a Snellen chart. A Snellen chart is used to determine your vision at 20 feet, right? How many in this room have 20/20 vision that they know of? You want to bet money on that? They're like, oh shit, maybe I don't have 20/20 vision anymore. No, you're not sure. Oh, what is it? You got 20/20? You don't. Which one?
Just say yes. I'm not sure.
A lot of times people say they have 20/20 vision. They might really not have 20/20 vision. 20/20 vision does not just mean you can see the Snellen chart at 20 feet. 20/20 vision means every single possible thing about your vision is 100% perfect. You can see full degree at your peripheral. You can see vertical and horizontal peripheral. Color is perfect. You can see 20/20, maybe even further. Your field of view is amazing. Everything has to be on point for 20/20. So next time somebody comes up to you who's all cocky like, oh, I got 20/20 vision, bet you don't. Older you get, the less your vision is 20/20, right? So we have a couple different types of visual acuity that we're trying to target out there on the web. The first one is spatial acuity. Now what is spatial acuity? You would think space, right? It kind of has to deal with space a little bit. 2 points in space, right? From A to B. If you can resolve 2 points in space, then your spatial acuity is pretty good, right? We have temporal acuity. Now what temporal acuity is, it's the ability to distinguish visual elements, in time. Now a perfect example of this is TV, movies. How many gamers we got in here? Console, PC, whatever the case may be. Nerds, okay. Just kidding. But no, games, movies, TV, right? These are all examples of temporal acuity. And so a fun fact, and the reason I have, before I say the reason I have, do anybody know who this is? There we go, cool. I knew I had some horror fans out there. The reason I have that back there is because there's a little fun fact. The reason that movies were called flicks had to deal with the projector, eyesight, all these different things in the mix. So back in the day with older films like this, the projector wasn't fast enough, so your eyes would see flicks and flickers in the line, in the film itself. That's how movies became known as flicks. Mind blown. But yeah, that's pretty sweet. We also have spectral acuity. Now this is a really, really cool one. I like this one a lot. This is the ability to distinguish wavelengths, differences in wavelengths like types of light, like red light, for instance. How many, how many were in the military, possibly in the Navy on a submarine, right? How many are photographers, old school photographers, that still use a darkroom?
Well,
Still, yes. Yeah.
The store in my neighborhood that sold the chemicals moved.
Oh, really?
About 5 years ago, but up to that point.
Yeah. The reason photographers use red light in a darkroom is so they can make out the picture to be super crisp, super clean, super clear. You see better in red light. That makes sense. How many like to go to the movies? You notice how the walkways are lined with red? Why is that? So you can see when you're walking in and out of the theater. Same thing with people in the military, right? On subs, submarines. When shit hits the fan, everything goes red. Why is that? Because they are rushing. They're going through hallways. They're ducking. They're navigating through places, tight corners possibly, and they have to see where they're going. That's why the red lights go on. That all has to do with spectral acuity. It's kind of science, the way it kind of works. Now, I'm not an ophthalmologist or an optometrist or anything like that. I don't know the differences between rods and cones and how that stuff, makes pictures in your eyes. This is all research, but this is all things we have to keep into consideration when we're building these experiences on the web. So we also have contrast sensitivity. Now, what do I mean by contrast sensitivity? Has anybody ever driven down I don't know how Colorado works. I don't know what an up north would be considered here. In Michigan, we have up north, right? But how many have been in a situation like this? You're driving down a country road, possibly. You're up in the woods, no lights at all, but the lights of your headlights. And you see someone or something on the side of the road at the last minute, and you freak out. Maybe hit your brakes, maybe steer, swerve. How many have been in that situation before? A lot of us, right? That might be a clear indication that you have issues with contrast sensitivity at night. Now, just with contrast sensitivity at night, you could hurt yourself. You could injure somebody or something, right? Same thing with the web. Colors matter on the web. Color contrast matters. So you could be hurting somebody, right, if you don't take these things into consideration. This is a fun little graph that I found. Federal website lawsuit, accessibility lawsuits by state in 2017. This is from the Safe Earth Law website. Total number of suits nationwide in 2017 is 814 federal website lawsuits, 9 states and Puerto Rico. That is unacceptable. That's 2.5 website lawsuits a day. Now, could this be people that are headhunting, lawyers? Possibly. Could this be websites that are actually really screwed up? Yes, it could be. But that number should not be that high for 9 states and Puerto Rico. The highest we have are in Florida and New York. So why do you think the numbers are high in Florida? Older population. Yeah.
I know from the civil engineering, there's an individual who just travels around state to state, going into restaurants, finding some issue, and then shooting. I would say those two are probably the same person or one person, most likely.
Could be. There could be many different reasons as to why. Florida, though, being aging population, flat out, right? You're from the north, where it's cold, especially in Michigan. You retire, where do you go? Florida, right? What about New York? Why do you think New York is so high?
Lots of lawyers.
That could be a reason. What else? Lots of regulations. That could be a reason. Why else? Lots of people. But Chris, California is bigger. Doesn't mean anything. California is a younger state, right? There's not that many people packed in California, even though it's a big state. There are a lot of people packed in New York. So many people, in fact, that people live underground. There's a lot of people. So those could be all different reasons as to why those are so high. But that number kind of blows my mind. So what is good color contrast? What makes for a good color contrast? The foreground and background being able to bounce off of each other, right? The black on the green. I've tested these colors. Even if you invert these colors and do the opposite, they still pass web content accessibility guidelines. That makes for a good color contrast when the foreground bounces off the background. According to the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1, they say a ratio of 4.5 to 1 is passing. The way they come up with these ratios is beyond me. It's all algorithmic equation, algebra. I failed algebra back in the day, so I don't know. But if I had to ask you if this passes, what do you think? Do you think this passes? Because I've had people tell me it passes. I've had people tell me they don't know. I've had people tell me, no, it doesn't pass. So in your opinion, do you think it passes? No? You would be correct. There is no way that this is going to pass. It's not going to pass on a Monday. It's not going to pass on a Friday. You're going to fail every time. You will get dinged in an accessibility audit every single time. What about this? Do you think this passes? I've heard yes, I've heard no, I've heard I don't know. You think so? I got some skeptics in the back. It passes. The reason it passes is because the 9.9 to 1, the 19.56 to 1, 12.94, those are way ahead of what is considered passing. That's above average for level AA and level AAA, which I can get into in a little bit. But they pass. Not that you want to do that. This is how we did stuff in 96. This is how I built websites in 96. Because black background, purple, lime green, the blink tag. Watch one of my CSS talks, you'll see that. Believe it or not though, yeah, even the marquee tag still works even though it was deprecated. Blink doesn't work though, unfortunately. You'd probably need JavaScript, but I mean, it's JavaScript, so do we ever really need it? Anyways, field of vision, the last type I'm going to talk about. This is a really important one as well. Is anybody familiar with Two Blind Brothers? No? Well, Two Blind Brothers, they create clothing, and they have this simulator down here, and it's also on mobile as well, where you can see and experience this, how they experience it. These two brothers, they experience Stargardt's disease. It's a macular, these are the brothers right here. It's a macular degeneration of your vision. What does that mean? That means it's not getting any better. It's going to get worse. That black spot is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger until you are completely blind. This is how these brothers see things every day. It's a type of field of vision impairment. You can also, I think I said that, but you can also view this on mobile as well. They do have the simulator on mobile. And all of their proceeds actually go to like the Blind Federation. So that's really, really cool, 100%. But that's how they see things every day. So what is field of vision? It's what you can see when the eyes are in a fixed position. So for example, if your line of sight, like say your fixation point is a sign or something, depending on your central vision, how high and how low and maybe to the sides you can see is your field of vision. That kind of goes back to being 20/20. If you have an amazing field of vision, that can lend into being 20/20. But that's what your field of vision is. So we have three different types of field of vision impairments. The first one being central. You've seen this with the Two Blind Brothers, where you can't see anything in the middle, but you can only see on the outside, right? Peripheral. You can't see anything on the outside, but you can only see the middle, so it's kind of like tunnel vision. At some point, that hole's going to close up. It's just a matter of time, right? And then we have other, and that's actually what it's called. It's called other, where it's kind of a mix, and it's going to continue being a mix until maybe a couple of those combine, and it's even a bigger blob. So your user kind of has to bob and weave their head a little bit to experience whatever you're trying to build for them. This causes a problem when you have inputs, buttons, certain things like this without focus, because no longer do you know where the focus is on that experience, and now your user's moving around trying to distinguish where they are in that experience. That's why you should never remove focus, because if you remove focus for your keyboard users, you remove it for your mouse users. You can remove it for everybody that's possibly using assistive technologies. And that kind of all goes hand in hand with field of vision. Now, if you want to know more about low vision stuff, there's tons and tons of information in these docs right here. Like I said, I will tweet this link out to the slides, and you can kind of get that information. I can also tweet that link out if you want to know more about low vision. A bunch of stuff here that I haven't even talked about. So if you really want to know more about this, you can check it out. So we have a few problems that we're going to talk about, and a few problems that I see, and I try to help work towards different companies I've worked for. Even by talking about the problems here at conferences and meetups, it kind of surfaces the issues that we see. Contrasting colors. This is bad. It fails AA and AAA. There's three different levels. You have level A, level AA, and level AAA. If you're doing things properly, you should hit level A. No questions asked, right? You should strive for AA. Every single, from A to AA to AAA, they all have varying types of success criteria that you have to meet. The most strict being AAA. You'll never hit AAA. Don't try. It's never going to happen. Accessibility consultants will even tell you that. Level AAA is almost impossible to hit. A lot of resources, a lot of power. The only things that really have to be AAA are kind of government websites, and according to Twitter, all of the government websites that are out there right now doing this whole debate thing, None of them are accessible. So they're all kind of losing in that aspect. But you want to hit AA. You should strive for hitting AA, because if not, you could face a lawsuit. So we have colors that just don't work sometimes, right? We have communication through colors. Communication through colors is a big one. Let's say we have this sweet, awesome legend, red, green, blue, yellow, and purple. And what that means is waiting, pushed, in progress, denied, and passed. Now, everybody close their eyes right now. Open them. Which one is passed? Do you remember the color that was associated with passed? Bottom one? You can see how this can be a problem. You cannot communicate through colors. Because if you have a user that has monochromatic color vision deficiency, or a developer, whatever the case may be, and you tell that person, hey, move this from green to blue. What the hell is green and what is blue? I don't know. What does that mean? Right? Oh, well, that's waiting, pushed, in progress, denied, and passed. That doesn't help anybody. A lot of the times you see this a lot, communication through colors. You cannot communicate through colors. Disabling zoom, that's another one, hijacking the zoom. Why are you hijacking zoom for mobile users? What's the point of that? Like restricting the scale and the viewport? Why? What was the method to that madness that you thought was a grandiose idea? You might have users that need to read something, maybe stocks, maybe some type of, article, book, whatever the case may be. Maybe they want to check out some art or pictures or something. They're going to an art show and they want to see some artist's work that's going to be there because they want to purchase it. They can't see it if you disable the zoom. Maybe they want to get really granular on it. Do not disable the zoom. Poor line height, that's another one, believe it or not. This is very hard to read, right? Because the line height, I think this is a default line height. Especially on mobile, and you restrict the zoom on mobile. Now your user is screwed. They can't read this. They might have to take out a magnifying glass, right? They need to be able to read these experiences and have good line height on them. Now let's take this example. This is with just a little bit of line height. If you increase the font color, put some line height in there, but you don't disable the zoom, your users will still be able to read this on a mobile device, right? Even if they don't have to zoom in on it, they might still be able to read it because the leading is a little bit better. Their line height's a little bit better. Poor typography. This is another one. I shouldn't have to give an example. If you know an example of poor typography, shout it out. Comic Sans. Don't do it. But, do you see the asterisk above? There's a reason there's an asterisk there. Users that are dyslexic have a better chance of reading Comic Sans than they do Helvetica. A better chance of reading Roboto than they do Times New Roman. Dyslexic users can make out italicized and slanted letters better than straight barred letters. Okay? Now, there are some websites out there that have actual simulators where you can switch on and off these different features, and it's really, really cool. If you've ever come across a website that has an accessibility simulator, definitely check it out. You can switch the font to Comic Sans. If you have dyslexia, you can switch the colors. So if you have some type of color vision deficiency, you can change the colors, and it'll change to the color palette that you're most used to. Really, really cool stuff. So yes, Comic Sans is kind of a faux pas, but there is good value in having Comic Sans as a fallback for your dyslexic users or any users that can distinguish italicized typefaces versus bar-style typefaces, serifs or sans serifs. Does that make sense? Cool. So yeah, conflicting typography. This is another one. Like, don't use 3 or 4 different fonts because then you're just confusing. You could possibly be confusing somebody. You could be causing somebody a lot of anxiety as well, right? Anxiety. What's that? That too. Like you throw Comic Sans, Papyrus, a bunch of other stuff in there, and then Helvetica. It's not going to work, right? Choose 1 or 2. I wouldn't even say 3 at the most. But make sure they make sense for that experience, right? Don't cause your users to have any problems with that experience. So we have solutions. We have solutions to these problems. Choose readable typography. Comic Sans, no, unless you have to use it, unless you're needing it or building something that's going to help out somebody else. Arial is a thumbs up. Icons and symbols. Thumbs up for things that are good, things that are working well. Thumbs down for not so great. Maybe a warning sign for, hey, we may or may not have problems with this.
Just be cautious. In an international audience, those don't always even work.
Right, and that's why I say sometimes it can be universal, sometimes it can't be. It all depends on the culture, the audience, etc. And we all know what this means. Things are on fire. Let's fix it because it's a dumpster fire right now. Enable Zoom by default. Do not restrict your user's Zoom. This was an application I built at my old company, and we didn't restrict the Zoom. This is fully being able to zoom in and out. If we restricted the zoom, the user would not be able to pinch on this device. So don't restrict the zoom. We do have some tools out there that we can use. Webaim.org, they have an accessibility checker. If you don't really want to get into like the nitty gritty of some other things I'm going to talk about. You can install an extension, which you can run on your experiences, and it'll kind of give you like a readout over to the side on the issues and stuff like that. I'm an accessibility advocate. I advocate to use Axe Core from DQ, not Dairy Queen. DQ is a company out in Ann Arbor, Michigan. You can use their tool in the browser. It's Axe Core. You can use it in Chrome and Firefox as an extension. You can also use it in your testing suites. You can also use it in Cypress. So you can run accessibility audits. It's pretty sweet. Oh, excuse me. You can do like it'll show you the violations, what needs review. Kind of gives you a readout of all the problems. You can highlight where it's at in the UI. You can also open up the dev tools and it'll inspect the node. It's really, really cool. If you're using Lighthouse, which I really wholeheartedly suggest that you're doing when you're doing any type of auditing on your experience, you can do an accessibility audit using Lighthouse, and that runs Axe Core under the hood as well. So that's really, really cool. So I do have some takeaways for you. Use colors that work, right? Don't just start using any off-the-wall colors that you think are sweet, because even though they're cool for you, they might not be cool for somebody else. Run websites through a testing and audit tool like Axe Core, even Lighthouse. Tenon has a really good one that'll do like the whole entire experience for you. Choose proper typography when you're building out these experiences. Work and collaborate with your design team to come up with something that's going to be accessible for your users. Use a plugin for your editor for testing. I think you can run, there's accessibility plugins for testing that you can run in VS Code, Visual Studio, whatever your IDE, your code editor of choice is. And leave Zoom alone, please. Stop restricting the Zoom from others. This is my friend Marcy Sutton. She used to work at DQ. Now she's head of learning at Gatsby. Gatsby's a really, really cool company. This is a quote from her. Every little bit of accessibility you contribute is so appreciated and so needed, and those are really, really true words. Resources and credits, everything's in a gist because there's just too much information to fit on a slide or 5 slides, and that's not worth it. But yeah, so I can also tweet this out as well. That's me, Salt and Burnham on Twitter. Slides, that's my time. Thank you. That's a good question. We can probably do another talk on that too.
Is it accessible?
It is, actually.
You know, it would be helpful for you if you could make custom bit.ly links, so you don't have to use like numbers and letters and stuff.
Oh, yeah.